Hi, Steve Riley. Welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. And today we answer the question and wrestle with the question, should you merge your practice? And I'm bringing one of my colleagues, one of my dear friends, Daniel Struna, here to have a conversation with us about his experience in merging and advising people on mergers. And the next episode that we're going to do, that you're going to listen to Daniel talk about, that he and I will set up in a few minutes, is a fantastic, successful merger. Daniel and I created a workbook called Should We Merge? And I thought it makes sense for Daniel and I to come on the episode and talk a little bit about this, because this is a common thing that we hear at Atticus, a common thing that a lot of our practice advisors deal with, a common thing that we get involved with, and a common thing that we untangle and help people leave practices where they merged, and it was probably an ill-advised merger. So with that, I'd like to, Daniel, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me. I always love being here. Thank you. It's always a treat and a privilege.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And you're doing such a great job. And this upcoming episode where you advise some very fabulous lawyers, which we'll talk about in a second. Let's focus on the top 3 mistakes that we see. And then those that would like to download our workbook can hit the show notes and download the workbook and talk to you further if they want to, or talk to us, further about it. Does that work for you?
Yeah, I love it. I think it's fantastic. Excited
Okay,
for it.
well, talk to me about this upcoming episode and why you think it's important. Just kind of do like a 2 to 3 minute intro for people so they understand the context for what our workbook.
Sure. So the next episode is going to feature the players, right? So it's two firms that successfully came together and have completed a successful, by all measures, very successful merger of those two firms. And so that conversation is going to walk through sort of from A to Z, how did that process unfold? How did they approach the conversation initially to even be talking about a potential merger of the two firms? All the sort of, issues and challenges and opportunities that came from thinking about, merging the two firms, and it's just going to be sort of a live unpacking of, just walking through step by step, like what did it look like? How did they do it? What were the sort of step by step process of it? So I think it's a fascinating, it's almost like just a case study, for, a merger, but a successful one. So great case study to kind of analyze. And it's just amazing people that were involved. So it's going to be a great, a great sort of thing for everyone to listen to. And I would say it's, today's conversation and, the next episode with the two law firm partners, or one law firm partners now, is incredibly valuable, of course, if you are now thinking about, or if perceive that in the future, someday you may think about, merging your firm with another firm. But I'll say there's all kinds of, sort of nuggets and great, thinking and ideas that will come out of these conversations that apply to many practices in many different ways, even outside of the merger conversation.
The first one is, I'm cute, you're cute, we should merge. And, you're laughing at it. What it really means is you're a good lawyer. I'm a good lawyer. I respect your legal skills. You respect my legal skills. We should merge. And this is a common mistake that a lot of lawyers make. You and I see this all the time because the lawyers respect each other from a legal skill perspective.
Yeah.
However, their businesses are totally, utterly incompatible. Their businesses are incompatible because they haven't really taken a step back and looked at the business side of the merger. Like, okay, who are we? What do we do? How do we serve? We
Yeah.
serve, right? They just look at, you're a good lawyer, I'm a good lawyer, we should merge. And I think this is probably the biggest mistake. And I made this mistake not once, not twice, but 3 times in my practice, where I respected the other lawyer's legal skills. We merged our practices together, and each one of those were a total disaster. And they were a disaster because I lost my friend, not because it was a bad business move. So each one of
Right.
those, the friendship ended because I became so frustrated.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably the biggest mistake. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so too, and I think part of it is because it's, it's, like, easy. It's easier to just stay on the surface and say, "I nope, I don't," kind of close my eyes. I don't need any additional information. I don't need to dig any deeper. I know, so and so is a great lawyer. I know that we, have some sort of good connection on a friendship level or relationship level. And if I just stop there, I don't have to worry about anything else, right? It's sort of like it's a sort of a version of putting our head in the sand as we move forward with something really important and very strategic to the future of our firm, which obviously that's why it's mistake number one, right? Because it's just not a great idea to do that. So it's like very surface level, not going into the details of all the reasons why you should or shouldn't move forward. But it is easier, right? It's easier on the front end, but maybe like to your own personal experience, it's not easier on the backside if it doesn't work out, right?
No, it's hugely terrible on the backside, and it's a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of complexity, and sometimes very, very expensive,
True.
and
Yeah.
and just not a good play. So
And
go ahead.
no, just the other thing I'll say is I'm an attorney, you're an attorney, we work with attorneys, those are all of our members are attorneys, and we're all trained to dive into the details on everything that we do from a legal substantive perspective. Our whole training is get all the details, dive down, get single thing that you need, all these different, sort of aspects of lawyer training that when it comes to a potential merger, we suddenly just throw it out the window and say, "No, we're good. He or she's a good lawyer. I'm a good lawyer, and that's enough. I don't need to know anything else." It's just, it's kind of like, ironic in a way, right? Very interesting. Number two is really the mistake is not making sure that one, you have a clear vision on what you want the practice to look like at some point in the future or what the vision for the practice is. And two, you don't have a vision for your own, personal life, right? I mean, the ethos of Atticus, right, is great practice, great life. And so if you don't have a dual vision for the practice, but also your life, it's almost impossible to know if you're aligned in that vision with this other, potential partner in terms of merging because you don't have a vision. So how do you even know if you're in alignment? And if they don't have a vision for practice or life, same thing. There's no way, if nobody has a vision for the future with the practice or for their life, how can you possibly be in alignment on what that vision is? And so that's one, I mean, that's it, right? I mean, sort of at the base level. Or if maybe you do have a vision, right, for for your practice or what you foresee the practice to be, and maybe they do too, but maybe you never talk about it, right? And so you don't have alignment. You each have visions, but you don't have alignment on what it is because you haven't really discussed it and you just stayed at that surface level. And if those two visions don't really like those sort of roadmaps don't align, right? At some point, it's like you're taking this trip, this journey, but one of you is going to really hate sort of the drive because you're going to the wrong, you're driving to the
Yeah,
wrong
right.
place, right? It's not going to work out so great. So I'm going to quote, I think I'll do a movie quote if that's okay. Um, Show me the money. So it's the money, right? It's the financial. I didn't do that quote very good, but it's Jerry Maguire, right? But the the third biggest mistake is not addressing sort of the elephant in the room, which is, any merger is on some very important level a financial, decision, and there's a lot of financial pieces that go into it, right? So if you're just going to be roommates, like you were talking about at the opening, the money doesn't need to be a big part of the conversation. You're just okay. What's the split on the front desk, or what's the split on the rent? We'll just split everything, down the middle, or in threes, or whatever it is. But when you're doing, coming together and truly merging together as firms, you have a lot more, complexity around what are we going to do with this big thing called, the dollar sign. And so not understanding what that's going to look like, not talking about what's going to be workable for everybody involved is a very big mistake, right? It's a big mistake. And I am almost sort of shocked sometimes when I see how, and this is usually before my involvement in the process, but how far attorneys will go in a conversation about merging without talking about money. It's like actually kind of shocking. I don't know if you've had that experience. Like they just don't bring it up until very late in the game, and then it can just at least throw everything off, basically, right?